Hello, my name is Jake Miller, and today I'll be going over how to use the E-Valuator software in order to compete in our university team challenge. I'll cover a high-level overview of what the software does, the handout that you should have or will be receiving from your professors regarding the competition, the three core settings that make up the backbone of the software, how to read the output of the software, and how to create a portfolio for the competition. So to begin, what does the evaluator do? The evaluator analyzes mutual funds and ETFs against their Morningstar benchmarks as guided by a user's settings. What makes the software unique is that it allows an advisor to set what the performance requirements are for a specific client when they're building out or adjusting their portfolio. Alright, and before diving into the software, I just wanted to cover the Team University Challenge brochure, which you should have received from your professors. Scrolling down to page 2, here we cover the rules for the competition. You'll each be given $100,000 to allocate across a minimum of 6 mutual funds and or ETFs up to a maximum of 25. And as a reminder, this is a buy and hold strategy competition. So once your accounts are created and the competition begins, you won't be able to go in and change your accounts. Feel free to reference this section right here as well for the start and end dates of your competition. Scrolling down here, we show a high-level overview of the software, but this should be covered more in depth in this video, but feel free to reference this material as well until we reach this page right here. And this shows how you are scored for this competition. You're scored based on performance, volatility, and expense. Performance comprises 60% of your total score, volatility 25, and expense 15. For performance, you are judged based on the 3-month, 1-year, and 3-year returns. For volatility, the 1-year standard deviation and the 3-year standard deviation, and the expense ratio is the expense ratio. Alright, and so getting back to the software, in order to log in, feel free to go to our website. That's E-Valuator.com. Should look like this, and then swing over here to the right to this login button. Here you'll enter your login credentials, that's your email address and the password we've provided. If for some reason you're unable to log in, feel free to reach out to us directly and we'd be more than happy to help. Alright, so then click login and that will bring you to the home screen of the software. We've given each of you our advisor level membership, so that allows you to create as many client accounts as you'd like. Those are located over here in this left hand column, and it unlocks the full functionality of the software. Right off the bat, you won't have any client accounts created in your account, but we'll get to how to create those in just one second. Before diving deeper into the software, I'd like to point out this question mark icon in the upper right hand corner. This is where you can find our PDF and video help libraries, and these show you virtually how to do anything inside the software. So if there's a feature that didn't quite click, or if you have questions on a feature that we didn't cover, feel free to refer to here first. However, if you still have questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, my name is Jake Miller. My email address is jacob.miller@e-valuator.com, and my phone number is 507-581-3463. So again, if you have any kind of a question that you can't find the answer to, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to help. Alright, so your first step will be to create your portfolio account for the team challenge. To do that, click on this button right here that says Create New Client, and this will bring you into the client account settings. Here are a number of fields to collect client information, but the only required one is this name field. In this case, I'm going to put Team Challenge and click Save. And next, I'm going to go up to the Client Plan settings. And here's where you can tailor a portfolio to match a client's investment philosophy very, very closely. There are 3 core settings that make up the backbone of the software. That is the dial settings, the duration tolerance, and the credit attribution table. The first of these 3 settings are the dial settings, and these allow a user to establish performance demands. So starting with the keep dial, this lets you establish how far above the benchmark average you would like an investment to perform in order to be considered a keep. This can range anywhere from more aggressive to more passive, and I'm going to go ahead and set that right here at 20%. And let's say, for example, that the benchmark return is 10%. Well, 20% of 10% is 2, so the investment would have to earn a 12% return or higher in order to be considered a keep. On the flip side of that, we have the replace dial, and you can think of this as your pain tolerance. This lets you establish how far below the benchmark average you would let an investment fall before you'd like to consider it a replace. Like the keep dial, this can be set to be very aggressive or very passive, and I'm going to set that at negative 15 here. So let's use that same example where the benchmark return is 10%. 15% of 10% is 1.5. So if the investment earned 8.5% or worse, it would be considered a replace. As we're all aware, sometimes an investment will have a bad month or a bad quarter, and we don't necessarily want to make a knee-jerk reaction and pull out of that investment right away. That's where we can use the duration tolerance. So this ties into the replace dial in that it lets us establish in months how long we'll give an investment time to recover. This can range anywhere from 1 month to 15 months, so I'm going to go ahead and set that at 5. So in this case, if an investment had been lagging our replace dial by more than 5 months, the software would flag it as an investment that we'd like to replace. So you can go in here and set these first 3 settings to be whatever you'd like. We do also have some presets over here to the right, ranging from more demanding to more passive. Alright, so scrolling down here, this is the last of our core settings, the credit attribution table. As we're all aware, not all time frames were created equal. Some advisors and investors like looking at longer term time frames, others prefer shorter term time frames, and many prefer a combination of the two. Here you can select which time frames you deem most important. So as you can see, we have a range to choose from, ranging from the 10-year all the way down to the 1 month. So let's say your client highly valued the 10-year return. You can go in here, select this button right here. Now beside each time frame, you will see this number beside it. That is the number of credits allocated to that time frame. And what credits do is it gives that time frame weighting. So in this case, the 5-year return has 20 credits allocated to it, so the 5-year returns will have 20% emphasis on the analytics going on in the background. And again, you can come in here and change these to be whatever you'd like, and there will be a nice tally up here for you to keep track. So you can go in there and set these to be whatever you'd like. You could also use one of our presets here along the bottom. I'm going to show you what a long-term focus setting looks like. As you can see, more of those credits have moved over here to the left, and now we're looking at the 10-year, 8-year, 5-year, and so on, as opposed to a shorter term focus setting, and now we're looking at the 3 to 1 year, 6 month, 3 month, 1 month, and those credits have swung over here to the right. I'm going to go ahead and set that back here in the middle at setting 12. It shows us a snapshot of how the fund is doing in the short term, but it also scopes out so we can see if that performance is sustainable. Just remember that when you change this setting to always click Save Changes. So again, to summarize those 3 core settings, the keep and replace dial lets us establish performance demands around the benchmark average. Our duration tolerance keeps us from making knee-jerk reactions. And the credit attribution table lets us establish which time frames we'd like to analyze and how important they are to us. Alright, so I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. The next step for you all will be to use the investment finder to populate your portfolio, but I'm going to go into an account that's already been created, and I think that'll make sense here in a little bit. So if you ever want to go back to the home menu, just scroll up to the top and click this home icon right here, and I'm going to go into Abby Davis's current portfolio. Alright, so the first thing I want to show you on this home screen is actually down here at the bottom. Here you can find those 3 core settings again: keep and replace dial, duration tolerance, and the credit attribution table. These can be changed at any point and they will impact the analytics going on in the background. If you do change these though, just make sure to click Save Changes. And then coming up here to the top, This is the home screen of a client's account, and this is also the most popular report in the software, and that is the bubble chart. What the bubble chart does is it shows the overall portfolio health in a manner that's very quick and easy to read. So as you can see, this chart is broken up into 4 different zones. Starting with this black line in the middle, that represents the benchmark average return. This dark green zone up here, this is called our keep zone, and this represents all the investments that are performing above the keep dial. Between the keep dial and the benchmark is this light green above average watch zone. Between the benchmark and the replace dial is this yellow below average watch zone, and anything performing below our replace dial setting is denoted in this dark red replace zone. Each of these bubbles represents a fund in the portfolio, and as you can see, they're color coordinated with their ticker symbol below. So looking at this first bubble right here, this bubble represents PGWTX, and if you hover over the bubble, it'll show some more stats for that fund. Right now it has a balance of $2,000. It represents 3.48% of the portfolio, and it has an E-Valuator score of 67.07, and we'll get more into what that score means here in a little bit. So as you can see, these bubbles are plotted depending on how well they're performing. So ideally, we'd like to see all these bubbles up here in this dark green zone. That means they're all performing above our keep dial. However, if a client comes to you and their portfolio looks something like this, you could tell them with confidence that you could improve their returns. You'll also notice that these bubbles are different sizes. A larger bubble just means that that fund has more assets allocated to it. So looking at this larger bubble right here, we see that it has $55,000 allocated to it, while the smaller bubble only has $10,000. So again, this is the bubble chart, and it shows a quick and easy overview of the overall portfolio health. And so by default, when you open a portfolio account, it's going to bring you to these portfolio reports. There are a number of other reports here in this left-hand panel. And for the sake of time, I'm actually going to move ahead, as these are relatively straightforward, but I would encourage you to go through there and look at some of them or all of them, as they do contain good information. But now I want to jump ahead to these fund level reports, as these can be a little more difficult to grasp, but once you get it, they are very powerful. So what these fund reports do is they analyze all the funds in the portfolio individually. So over here on the left, we can see all the funds in this portfolio, and by default it'll open up this first one, which in this case is MGRDX. We see that it's an MFS International Growth Fund. It's in the foreign large growth category. Right now it has an E-Valuator score of 96.43. It currently is upward positive momentum, and it is considered a keep. Below that, if we expand this, we just show a few more stats for the fund: percentage of total assets, turnover ratio, expense ratio, and manager tenure. But I'm going to go ahead and close that and come down here to the meat of this report, and that is the performance tolerance analysis. So of all the reports in the software, this one can be the most overwhelming, so let's just get the lay of the land first. Looking at this rightmost column, we can see that these are our month-to-date returns for the fund. Going over one column, these are the returns from July of 2022, over again, June of 2022, May, April, March, and we go back on a month-by-month basis for 5 quarters or 15 months. Over here in this leftmost column, these are the returns that we decided to look at in the credit attribution table. So as you can see, we are analyzing the 5-year, 3-year, 2-year, 1-year, 6-month, 3-month, and 1-month returns. Scrolling down here quick, here are those settings again. As you can see, they line up: 5-year, 3-year, 2-year, 1-year, and so on. And so what we do is we list how this fund has performed for those time frames for the last 15 months. So let's say we wanted to see how this fund's 2-year annualized return was in December of 2021. We'd come here to the 2-year, swing over to December, and we can see that this fund returned 12.69%. Or let's say we wanted to know this fund's 3-month total return in May. So again, come to the 3-month, swing on over to May, and we can see that this fund returned at negative 5.13%. So as you can see, we've color-coded all of these returns. Any return in a dark green box means that it is outperforming by more than our keep dial. Any return in a red box means that it's underperforming by more than our replace dial. And any return in a light green or yellow box is falling someplace in the middle. And this occasionally trips some people up because they'll see a return such as this one, the 6-month return in May of 2022. They'll see that it has a return of negative 10.01, but it's still in a dark green box. And what that means is that the benchmark performed that much worse. So in this case, a score of negative 10 is still performing by more than the keep dial setting. And so for the most part, this just becomes an eye test. Ideally, we'd like to see this entire chart be dark green. That means that that fund is performing exceptionally well. However, if we look up a fund and we see that this is all or mostly dark red, we know that should be a fund that should be avoided. I always advise people to begin by looking in this lower right-hand corner because it is our most recent data, our most recent months with our shortest time frames. So if a trend is going to develop, you're going to see it here first, and if it's sustainable, you're going to see that color march up here and to the left. So looking at this fund, we can see that it had some poor performance up here, some reds and yellows. At some point they made a change, and now we're seeing more of that dark green moving up and to the left. Alright, so in the background, we're giving each of these returns a score. And that score is a culmination of the number of credits we assigned to each time frame and how well that return is doing relative to our settings. So a return in a dark green box will earn a higher score than a return in a red box. But if we're comparing two dark green returns, the one that has the most credits allocated to its time frame will earn a higher score than the other. So what we do is we tally all of those up on a month-by-month basis, and we show the results right down here in this total credits row. And so this score is out of 100, 100 being the highest. So if a month has a score of 100, that means that fund excelled. However, if it has a fund closer to 0, we know that it struggled for that month. What we do, based on these credits, is we assign it as either a keep, a watch, or a replace. So again, we can see that this fund was struggling in the past. It was on replace here for a handful of months. In December of 2021, they made some sort of a change, and we began to see that move to a keep, and that's reflected up here in the score, which has been inching up ever since. Now scrolling down here a little bit, this is our trending analysis, and what this does is it takes all the data up here and factors in our duration. So again, getting the lay of the land, see that the rightmost column is July of 2022, June, May, April, and we go back on a month-by-month basis for 5 quarters or 15 months. So if you'll remember, we set our duration to be 5 months, so we'd give an investment 5 months time to recover. Let's focus on this number right here, July of 2022. This fund earned a score of 96.4, and the way that we arrive at that number is we just take these last 5 months of data and average it. So if our duration had been set at 3, we would average just these most recent 3. If we'd set it at 15, we would take all 15. But again, we're just getting a rolling history of the fund's performance on a month-by-month basis for the last 5 quarters. And this just shows a trend of how the fund is done. So, looking back in the past, again we see this fund struggled for a while. Around November, December, they made some sort of a change, and they've been trending upward ever since. And this number right here, this 96.4, that is actually how we calculate our E-Valuator score, 96.4. Alright, so that is the meat of these fund level reports. Below this, we show the performance stats for the fund compared to the benchmark. We show Sharpe ratio, standard deviation, alpha, beta, upside, and downside. Show the static returns for the fund, the calendar year returns, and the rolling return history. And you can come in here and select and deselect these as you please. But so as I stated, this is a fund that was doing relatively poorly and has since turned things around. I want to show you a few more funds so you can see what this chart can look like and how to analyze it. Alright, so this is a fund that has sort of performed the opposite. You can see that it was doing relatively well here in the past. It's earning scores in the high 70s, low 80s, a few 90s. Sometime around February, March, they made some kind of a change, and ever since they've been having worse performance, again over here in this dark red, and those scores have dropped down to the 40s and 30s. This fund went from a keep down to a watch. So again, always start by looking in this lower right hand corner for new trends. Then coming down here to the trending analysis, we can just see that that's verified. Again, scores were pretty high for the most part. Around January, February, they made some kind of a change, and it's been trending downward ever since. Alright, so here is a fund that has been performing pretty exceptionally for a long time. You can see that this chart for the most part is all dark green. You can see over here May 2021 there was a little bit of a hiccup, but they built back up from it quickly, and starting in February of 2022 they've been earning a score of 100 consistently. That's exceptionally rare. So this would be a great kind of fund to have in your portfolio, and that's just verified by the trending analysis. Trending upward ever since, and hitting 100 in June and July. However, on the flip side of that, we will see funds that look like this, where basically the entire chart is dark red. We can see that sometimes they're not even earning a score, and if they do earn a score, it's in the single digits for the most part. It's been consistently on replace, and the trending analysis looks just as abysmal. Say it's bounced up and down, but it's almost never broken a score of 10. So again, this is the kind of a fund that you would not want to put in your client's portfolio. And so those are the main reports that I wanted to show you in this video. Like I said, there's a ton of other features in here that I didn't have time to get to, so feel free to go through there and explore those for yourself. Next, I would like to show you how to use the investment finder to populate your portfolios. Alright, so going back to the home screen, I'm going to come down here to that Team Challenge portfolio I created earlier. And the first section I want to show you is this investment selection criteria, and that's located in the client plan settings. And so these can be set at any time, and what they do is they allow you to fine-tune your search to be very, very specific. So you can see that you can filter based on ranking, beta, alpha, upside and downside, and so on. So let's say you had a client come in and they were focused on manager tenure. So you could come in here and you could select that you only want to look at funds with managers who have more than 10 years experience. Some advisors use these pretty extensively, others don't touch them at all. I would just advise you that if you do use these, not to use more than 7 or 8 of these, as it can get rid of all the potential results. Some of these can also be a little bit difficult to set, and so if you do have any questions, feel free to come up here to this question mark icon, and it'll help guide you on which way to point those carrots. Alright, so now coming back up here, in order to go to the investment finder, you're going to come up here to this magnifying glass icon that says Investment Finder. Alright, so when using the investment finder, you have 3 options. You can either add an investment, search for replacements, or outright replace an investment. So in this case, let's add an investment, and it's a pretty easy 2-step process. First, we select which benchmark we would like to look at. In this case, let's say we're looking for a technology stock. and then we get to choose a minimum E-Valuator score that our funds must exceed in order to be considered. If you click on this icon right here, it'll show you how those scores range. So right now a keep is anywhere from a score of 60 to 100. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to be 75 and click Find Matching Investments. And so right now the software is going through Morningstar's universe of mutual funds and ETFs and applying all of our filters. And depending on those filters and the category that we're looking at, this can take a little bit of time, so just be patient. But just know that once this screen appears that it has finished loading. Going from left to right, we show the fund's ticker, name, eval score, 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year returns, management tenure, expense ratio, 12B-1 fee, and yield. So let's say you're looking for a fund with a low expense ratio. Come over here and click on that header, and it'll organize by expense ratio. Now I'm going to go ahead and organize this by eval score, and just looking at this top fund here, see that it's a score of 99.68. If you want to see a little more in-depth look at that fund, you can click on this all-seeing eye icon beside it, and this will show some more info for the fund. So again, 99.68 has positive momentum, it's considered a keep. And coming down here, this is why I wanted to show off the reports first, so this would look a little more familiar. Right now, we see that recently this fund has been performing exceptionally well, that it's earned a score of several hundreds since March. Overall, this fund looks pretty solid. And let's say that this is a fund that we wanted to add to our portfolio. So what we do is we'd come down here, close this, click on this little icon beside the fund, and click Add to Portfolio. Now we just have to enter how much we allocated to this fund. So let's say in this case that we allocated $20,000 to it. Click Add. And now that fund has been added to our portfolio. Now for the sake of the example, let's just add one more fund to this portfolio so I can show you how easy this is. So again, come up here to the investment finder, add an investment, select the benchmark. In this case, let's do financials, set a minimum evaluator score, set that again at 75 and click Find Matching Investments. Like I said before, this can take a minute. But now coming down here, let's say hypothetically that we looked through a few of these and we decided that we wanted to go with this one. Click that icon, scroll down here and click Add to Portfolio. This time I'm going to put $10,000 in that fund and click Add. And so it's that easy to populate your portfolio. If you'd like to go in and organize or delete investments from your portfolio, feel free to come up here to your client settings, which can always be found in the upper right hand corner. This will open your client plan settings. Come down here to the investment selection, and here are those funds again. So you can either delete them, rearrange them, or if you have funds in mind that you'd like to add, you can click on this row, enter their ticker, and allocate funds to them. And so that really is the meat of the software. Like I said, there are a ton of features I didn't have time to cover, and I'd encourage you to go through and experiment with them for yourselves. Again, I do want to point out this help menu in the upper right hand corner, and it does go to show just how many features this software has. However, if any questions do persist, feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, there's my contact information. My email is jacob.miller@e-valuator.com, and my phone number is 507-581-3463. Again, if you have any questions on the software or any features that I didn't cover, feel free to reach out. And with that said, good luck on the competition,